So, your family hates pro wrestling? Welcome to the club. I'm Mike Quackenbush, and this is Till We Make It. Throughout my career, I have been very fortunate because I've worked in front of the cameras as a professional wrestler, referee, ring announcer, and commentator too. And I've also had the opportunity to work behind the scenes in wrestling as a promoter, booker, agent, coach, and consultant. And a bunch of other jobs I've done along the way too. Designed wrestling posters? Yeah, I've done that. Written for the wrestling magazines? I've done that too. I bring the sum total of all my experiences working in wrestling and I serve it up right here to you each and every week on Till We Make It. And if you're down with that, what are you waiting for? Go ahead and join the Till We Make It tribe. Subscribe right now. At the top of today's video, I want to shout out my two newest patrons. So, thank you to Bruno and thank you to Austin. These guys are helping me along the way to reaching my goal of 100 patrons over on Patreon. And if keeping Till We Make It a weekly YouTube channel is important to you, then I need your help as well. Jump on that link down below in the descriptus and you can join our community for as little as $5 a month. Today's topic is one that has popped up a whole lot in the comments section under some of my older videos. And it tends to come from teenagers who envision a path into pro wrestling for themselves after they complete high school. And they're asking things like, how do I tell my parents I want to become a professional wrestler because they hate wrestling? Or my parents are forbidding me from training for professional wrestling until after I've finished my college degree, or things of this type. And this is a topic which is near and dear to my own heart. So today I want to share with you some of my own experience dealing with exactly these things. I was a teenager when pro wrestling started to take over my life. I watched every televised minute of it, I read all the magazines, I played all the video games. Suddenly all my school projects were about professional wrestling. And then, after the 1, 2, 3 Kid upset Razor Ramon on Monday Night Raw, I realized I can do this. I can become that. But the problem was, there was no Google to search back then. There weren't helpful YouTube tutorials to instruct me. And as it turns out, there was pro wrestling training just 30 minutes north of where I lived, but I had no idea it was there. They didn't advertise in the local newspaper. If you were connected to the right people, you heard it was there. And as a high school student, I wasn't connected to anybody. I didn't know anybody. I was a dumb kid. It would not be an exaggeration to say my family hated professional wrestling. And actually, here we are some 30 years later, it's probably still true. They probably still hate pro wrestling. My dad never asks about it. When he calls me up, his primary concern is, son, how's your car running? And I've learned over the decades, this is not a euphemism for something else. He's genuinely interested in how my vehicle is performing. More than anything I have ever done in professional wrestling. Here's a great example of that. A couple years ago, Sports Illustrated, a magazine my dad has definitely read, issued their definitive list of the 101 greatest professional wrestlers of all time. And I am on that list. I am 2 spots above Seth Rollins. I'm 12 spots above Shinsuke Nakamura. I know. I have all the same questions you do about that, but let's place that aside. When this came out, my dad called me up, and do you know what he said? Son, how's your car running? That was his primary concern on that particular day. And although the speech that I gave at Ignite Philly 16 was written for general audiences, I do think, in part, I wrote that one for my dad. I would love for my dad to share in my appreciation of all the things that makes wrestling weird and wonderful and unique. And to have any conversation about that, I must seek out common ground. That's how I overcome this. And while my dad does not have a particular interest in wrestling, he is very keenly interested in travel, in seeing the world. And so I use that as my avenue for discussion. If, while we're catching up on the current condition of my car, he happens to mention something like, "Oh, I'm planning a trip to Madrid." "Hey, you know what? I've been to Madrid. I wrestled there. I got my blue jacket while I was in Madrid." Make sure you see the Dalis that are on display at the Reina Sofia while you're there. I'm looking for that common ground for us to have a conversation about wrestling, one that allows us to connect rather than emphasizing all the ways in which we disconnect. And for my mom, it's all about injury. And this, of course, is a very natural reaction for any parent to have because they're protective of their kids. And these concerns are not misplaced. Many of the most serious injuries I had in my career happened in the first 3 years I was in the ring. That's when I fractured my skull and had a seizure in mid-match. And no parent wants to see their kid get hurt. No parent wants to watch their kid getting loaded into an ambulance or get a call in the middle of the night that they're in the emergency room. And the reality is, even training to be a professional wrestler comes with the risk of injury. It's entirely possible you'll come back from practice with a sprained ankle. You're going to come home from training with a bloody nose. And that's probably just month 1 of training. But you can start to overcome some of these natural apprehensions any parent might have by taking a mature and responsible stance toward your recovery. So let's say you do come home with a sprained ankle and your physician tells you to take 4 weeks off from any physical activity. Now, does that mean you're not going to go to the training classes that you've paid for? No, you're going to go, but you're going to sit there, take notes, and ask questions while never participating in the ring. Show your parents that you're serious about recovery and safety without being impetuous or impulsive. This next one is really powerful, so listen carefully. If you took all the money that you had and you used all of it to buy stock in just one company, any reasonable financial advisor would tell you you are taking on too much risk. This investment you are making is too risky. Instead, you should be diversifying your portfolio. You should be spreading that risk out to mitigate it so it's not such a high risk investment. Because if that one company you just put all of your money into takes a hit, you lose everything. And this aligns very neatly with a common concern many families have for someone that wants to direct all of their energies and attention into professional wrestling. It feels like it's too much risk to take on. If this venture fails, you could lose everything. And in order to overcome this, you just need to assure your family that you are not going to abandon your education to chase professional wrestling. I've trained thousands of wrestlers over the last couple of decades, and I've had many of them finish their education while they are training simultaneously. It is possible to do both. And assuring your family that you are going to complete your education, get that high school diploma, grab that degree from a college or university while you are simultaneously exploring your options in professional wrestling, this goes a long way to assuaging parental concerns. And I want you to know, you might make all of these efforts and arguments to find common ground, to overcome these obstacles, to assuage concerns, and the reality is, it might still get you nowhere. I reached a breaking point with my own family when I was 20 years old. Basically, they said to me, either you're going to quit wrestling or you're going to get out of this house. And that's when I had to start packing my bags and getting ready to move out and strike out on my own. If I wanted to make this thing happen, I was going to do it without their support. And that stung. It felt a little like a betrayal. Growing up, you told me I could be anything. I should chase my dreams. And now I'm doing that, and suddenly that's bad or wrong. What's going on? It would have been great if I would have had unerring familial support in the earliest days of my wrestling career. But that just wasn't my story. And I'm still here, standing here right now, telling you that story decades later. That's been my experience. But even though I did strike out on my own, I did not find success in professional wrestling by myself. I needed a team around me. You need a team around you, and you need 5 people on that team. And I'm going to break all of that down in the video that's appearing on screen right now. Click on this video to keep on learning, or click on the P to jump over to my Patreon page and help me on my way to achieving my goal. And leave me a like-a-palooza on today's video too.